Today I'm going to walk you through Notion's latest update, and this is a pretty big one. Firstly, we have a color palette UI change. So this went through a lot of different variations and some drama from the community, but Notion has landed on a pretty decent and more vibrant set of colors. This includes colors for highlights, for text colors, and for select properties. Next is the grouping feature, which is what I'm going to share with you in this video. So this is a big change in how you can visualize data inside of Notion and add new data to your databases. So these use cases are just examples that I used to test the new feature when it came out. So I had a list of just general ideas, maybe using grouping in a checklist, a habit tracker, a notebook, and I went ahead and made as many properties as I could think of that would be useful to me. And maybe some of these use cases can spark some inspiration for your own workspace. Let's just get right into it. First, let's begin with just using the grouping feature. This is a plain list view checklist. We have some basic properties here. We have a text property for comments, a date property, a priority select property, which is just a drop-down menu of tags from priority 1 to 4, and a done checkbox. So inside of here, I just simply have a sort. I want to add a grouping. What I can do is add a group for any one of those properties I have in the database. Let's do done. This is a good way to separate active and inactive tasks. And there you go, you have two different toggles that you can open up that show both checked and unchecked to-do list options. Pretty easy and really nice with these toggles. You can hide each group. Now this number on the side of each checkbox is a count all calculation, and you can choose a number of different options to calculate values inside of your database via grouping. So this is going to count everything within the given group, which is 4 items. You can also group by date, which we're going to do a lot of in this video. I can group by my date property, and I can group by day, week, month, or year. Let's do week. I'm going to have a no date option up here. I can go ahead and hide that. And now I have all of my to-do list items grouped by the week they are in from Sunday to Saturday. And again, I can make some calculations. Instead of just showing me how many to-do list items I have, I can go to % checked and done. And that will give me the percentage of all items completed. I do have one other use case that I made really recently that looks a lot like that checklist, and that's a Twitter thread editor. And you guys can take a look at this through the link down below as well. And that's just giving you a few different grouping database views, one by active threads. Again, that's that done checkbox. And if I go into one of these, let's go into one that has some stuff in it. We have a reception property, just a drop-down menu of stars, and we can group by reception. We can also group by date. I have a weekday formula too that you can also group by. So you can also group by formula results. And then I have all of my tweets here, and every time I add more characters, the tweet percentage for a character limit formula does go up and down. So you guys can take a look at that. I also have a media, a link property. All of these things can be grouped. For example, I have a group by weekday, and that is the formula. I can look at the reception on any given day of the week, like a Monday or a Wednesday. And then I can hide these toggles as well. Let's go back and look at another way to group, and that would be with a habit tracker. In the body of the page, I do have a calendar view. All you're really going to do if you're curious is go to properties, and you can show checkboxes, which is really cool. And you can click checkboxes through a card in calendar view. But we're not looking at that, we're looking at grouping. Again, we can group by week. And you'll notice that we have some properties here for the habits, of course, the weekday formula, which I'm just grabbing from the date property, and a mood drop-down menu for great, good, okay, and poor. I also have a progress formula that's taking all of my habits for a given day and giving me the percentage completed. Now, like I said before, we can grab the percentage of tasks done in a weekly grouping through this button here. But what you can also do, if you have a ton of checkboxes like this, is grab a number result from a formula, like this progress formula, and take the average of it. You can see up here, I have 83% average in progress. And you can find that by going to the average and selecting progress. Whenever you have a number value, whether it be a formula or just a regular number property, this option will show up in your group calculation. Now, another thing we can do, if I go to another view here called weekday, and this is me grouping by the day of the week, that formula, I can also go down to habit 1 and also find the percentage checked. And with grouping, it makes it so much easier to analyze in different ways, all in one space. So group. When you group by a formula, so I'm going to go to group by weekday, that's my formula here. I'm going to get all my options for all the results from my formula. And again, these formulas will be available to copy. There is also an option to sort. So I can sort manually, alphabetically, or reverse alphabetically. By clicking manual, you'll be able to drag each one of these formula results around. Let's look at how board views operate with this new grouping feature. So let's group by mood. Again, that was a select property with 4 different options. And if I go to group by mood here and click on the menu, you will see all the different options for database views. I'm in board right now, which is like a Kanban or a pipeline. So you can drag cards around in this view. And you'll notice that my subgroup, which is going to be on the left-hand side inside of these toggles, my subgrouping is by date. And I am selecting day. What I also have here is a filter. And that filter is saying this week is checked and name contains daily habit. So what is that this week formula? That's right up here. This is just telling my database, does this date land within this week from Monday to Sunday? So if you do want to group or subgroup by date and day, you may want to create a filter like that. Another thing with grouping by dates, you do have to make sure that you already have dates existing in your database. For instance, if you just have a fresh new database with a date property, but nothing filled out, no dates filled out, whenever you group by date, nothing is going to show up. So what this grouping by date does is take what already exists and displays your data. So if you want to make a timetable, for instance, you do have to keep this in mind. Speaking of, let's go over to the timetable and let's look at a weekly timetable and go up to timetable. So in this instance, I am grouping by date up at the top here, and I could add another filter for that formula that is for this week. I also have it in this database here, and I could make sure it's only the dates from Monday to Sunday up at the top, and I can go to subgroup and group by a select property that gives me time options. So that's down on the side here. You'll see from 5 a.m. all the way down. And that's over here in the multi-select time property. And I just have options from 5 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. On the other side of things, you can also group by week. So this is, again, I'm having at the very top here, grouping by my multi-select time property, and then I'm subgrouping by week. So if you want to add a new card through a week grouping, let's say for 6 a.m., the date that's going to show up is the date that is in the middle of the week on a Wednesday. And from here, I can change it to the 18th. Of course, I'm sorting by date ascending so that the earliest date is at the top. And you guys can take a look at that. Link, of course, is down below to look at absolutely every use case here. I also have a formula by time of day. What this is doing is grabbing my time multi-select property. It's determining what time of the day it starts at. So 8 a.m. of course is the morning. What I have here are 3 different formula results. Again, I'm grouping at the top here, time of day formula, and I'm able to drag it around using sort manual. I also have subgrouped the date and the day. Here's some advice I have for grouping by dates. What you can do, in this instance, we have a subgroup by a week. You can hide empty groups. Let's pretend that all of these are completed for this week. And if you see that you're kind of stopping down the line here, there should be an option that says to show more properties. All right, so it looks like everything is clicked done. If I have a filter here that says done is unchecked, so all active tasks, you'll notice that all of my groups have disappeared because I have the option for hide empty groups on. Now, you can also come down here and show all groups again. You can hide just certain groups. All right, so now that we know about some of these configurations with groups, let's look at another use case for Eisenhower Matrix. This is one that is utilizing that board view and the subgrouping really well. Now, I do have inline style options in the body of the page if you guys want to take a look at that, but let's look at the main database. Going up to the top database view, I'm grouping by urgency. So what an Eisenhower Matrix is doing is grouping by two different things, importance and urgency. So you're giving a task an importance tag by either high or low, and the same for urgency, high or low. So your tasks are going to fall under 4 different corners, or like a matrix. It's going to fall under high urgency, high importance, low urgency, high importance, or high urgency, low importance, low urgency, low importance. So you have these 4 corners here, and you can add new items to it. How I'm able to do this? Again, we're grouping by urgency at the top and subgrouping by importance on the side. And the importance is what we can hide. I also have a filter here that says done is unchecked. So I am creating a little bit of an archive. So when I am done a task, it disappears. And if I go through to one of these tasks, you'll notice that there's a formula called status. And here what I'm doing is just creating some conditions. It's a really short formula. If importance or urgency is empty, make it an inbox status. This is a task that hasn't been assigned a tag yet. Now, if it is done, if I press the done checkbox, it will turn into a done status. Otherwise, the false condition will be working. Again, you can group by these formula results. So if I go down to group by status, I have a group for my formula status. So I have inbox at the top where I can add new tasks. It'll stay in my inbox until I give it an urgency and an importance tag. And you'll see it has transferred down to working. And then I automatically have an archive section down here with my done formula result. Now let's go back to the main page and look at a monthly timetable. This is very similar to the weekly timetable, except I am grouping by month. So again, we have our toggles here on the side, doing a group and a subgroup, grouping by week of month. This is a formula, and I'm subgrouping by date, and I'm making sure the date is month. That's giving me September 2021 and October 2021. So what are these weeks? This is just a simple formula that tells me what week of the month that this date is in, which will show up at the top here. I feel like this is a great way to archive tasks by grouping them by month. Because if you get too many tasks grouped by week, you're going to get a lot of toggles for a lot of weeks. And if that becomes overwhelming, I would suggest changing to month. I also have a group by month where it's switched over, so the subgroup is the week of the month and the group is the month. And then here's your classic group by month in a list view. That's a really quick, easy one to replicate. Let's go to goal management and how you can group by the relation property. So let's say you have 2 different databases. The relation property is going to be able to connect those 2 databases together. So I have 2 here. I have one for goal setting and I have one for project management. And yes, I am in a quote block here. This is a quote, and you can drag a linked database inside of a quote block. Also, really quickly, if I change this to a list view, if you change the quote size to large, your items in a list view will also change to large. Okay, so we have goal setting. This is one database, and we have project management as another. Project management is taking care of all of the tasks, where goal setting is where all the projects are going. So if I look at one of these projects, I have a done checkbox, I have a start date, an approximate end date for this project, a goal that it's associated with, so an overarching goal in a select property, some tasks. Now this little arrow here is indicating that this is the relation property. This is connecting to project management and that list of tasks or subordinate tasks, and a couple of roll-ups. I tried to test if you could group by roll-ups. You can't. And again, you can group by a select property, of course. I'm grouping by goal here. And calculating the percentage done. So let's go to project management. This is a timeline view. And grouped is project. And that's my project relation coming back from these tasks. So from subordinate task A1, I can choose the project and actually transport myself to that goal setting database with all of those properties, like the goal drop-down menu, and then go back to my subordinate task. What's also really nice about grouping by relations is if I go to add a group, I can remotely add a new project to that goal setting database. New project. And it will show up here, and I can add tasks to this new project over in my timeline. And it will be hidden inside of my little toggle here for new project. And then if I click through to new project, you'll notice that I have transported to my goal setting database. So I've remotely created that relation, or I've remotely created a project in goal setting. I can also go to board view and maybe group by status. And if I want to add new tasks that maybe don't apply to any of these tags, I can just add a new task here, and then when I'm ready, I can move it around. And of course, you can add new tasks and you can calculate. Here, I believe I have percent checked done, and count all for my groups. So let's look at notebook indexing. So a lot of this was task management. I just wanted to do one example of a notebook. I have two different sections down here for review now and review later. And I'm linking from a notebook database. Again, I'm using two databases, just like the goal management. So I have a tag wall and a notebook. Inside my notebook, I have an option to add tags that are coming from my tag wall. And just an understanding select property from no understanding to great understanding, grabbing the weekday from the date. And I also have a select property for where this note is coming from. So let's go back to this page. Now, review now and review later. These are linked databases from Notebook. It is in a list view. And I am grouping, again, by that relation property, the tags relation, and I'm viewing my understanding tag. I have a filter here for review now, where understanding is no or some understanding. Again, there's 4 options. So it's likely you want to review stuff that you have a low understanding of. And then review later, I have a filter for good and great understanding. So if I were to untoggle topic A, all of these notes have a good understanding. So that's just another neat way to use linked databases and grouping at the same time. Some of the grouping options for Notebook, I have grouped by week, which we've been through a lot. Now I also have group by understanding. This is another board view. I'm grouping that understanding tag at the top and the topics to the side from that relation property. And I can also group by where this note is coming from a book or lecture or a podcast. I really loved experimenting with this new feature, and I'm excited to add this new feature to my own personal databases. Of course, you can duplicate anything you see here. I also have a link to look at the new colors, which are also a part of this update. I really like it. It went through a few different variations, but the palette they landed on, I do enjoy. Let me know down below what you think about this new update, how you guys are going to be using grouping, and let's go right into the outro. This was a bit of a longer video. I just wanted to do a tour of all my little experimental databases that I've been messing around with to look at this grouping feature closely. And I do like it a lot, and I plan on using it a lot in my workspace to the point where it almost feels like all of my old databases are useless, or they're not as useful as they could be. So I have to go in and start updating all of those. Also, I'll probably be updating some old templates that I have, or just making new updated ones that you could also duplicate as an alternative. So you might see that here and there inside of my template database. Other than that, I'll see you guys the rest of the week on Twitter, and next time with a new video. I'll see you then.